morning guys, and welcome to the channel. So in the previous video I was talking about how much this car cost me out the door, which was right around like $100,000. I also talked about the monthly payments, insurance payments, all that stuff in that video. If you haven't watched it already, make sure you do. A very common question that everybody was asking me in the comments and in my Instagram DMs was, what do you do for a living to afford the 2020 Corvette and those monthly payments, the payments on this modified Rubicon, and the payments on a brand new Dodge Charger Hellcat. And in today's video I'm going to be going into detail what it is that I do for a living. Like I said, anybody can do what I do for a living to afford these vehicles that I have today. To be honest with you, I'm very far from being done. People that know me for a while know that the cars I have in my driveway, that was like a big goal of mine to have all three at the same time. Huge goal of mine. But I actually want to add a fourth vehicle, and I want this fourth vehicle to be an exotic. And the only way I'm going to be able to make that happen is by starting up another side business. And I'm going to get a little bit into that little side business idea towards the end of the video. But do me a favor, watch this video until the end. If any ads come up, please, I would greatly appreciate if you do not skip the ads, because it really does help the channel. And if you do find value in the information I'm providing you in this video, give it a thumbs up. Hopefully this time around more people get to see this video, because this video I actually had uploaded a few months ago on my channel and it really didn't get any views. I don't think, not too many people saw it at all. I don't know if YouTube just didn't send out the notifications or whatever the case is, but I have a feeling that now that we have the 2020 Corvette, people might actually be watching. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you haven't done this already, hit the subscribe button, click the bell icon so you can sign up for notifications, because the next video is going to probably be talking about how much the Hellcat costs, what the monthly payments on the Hellcat are, all that. Anyway, enjoy. Alright guys, so I think I found a good enough spot. It's pretty quiet. We should hopefully have no interruptions. So let's go ahead and get today's video started. Guys, I always like to be as transparent as possible with you, and I like to give you the good with the bad. I, just want to always provide you guys with good, useful information. So this is what I do. I'm going to get straight to it. I am a senior Cisco network engineer. Now, granted, I know unless you work in IT, you probably have no idea what that is, and it's very common. Everybody thinks that I just repair computers or I fix computers, and that is not what I do. It's not even close to what I do. So right when I got out of high school, I just went to some stupid little local technical college. Now, I'm not where I'm at today because of this college. Honestly, I'm where I'm at today because of my drive and my motivation. And I can say this with confidence because I can tell you that 90% of the people that I went to school with ended up not even working in IT, or ended up going back to just doing construction or doing whatever they were doing before they even signed up to this class. This was like a very short course that I took in school. It was like a year and a half, and they give you like an associate's degree, and that was pretty much it. But again, before I even graduated the school, I had already landed a job working on Wall Street. I was like 20 years old at the time. I remember I wasn't even old enough to drink. At the first company Christmas party, my coworkers were making fun of me because, I wasn't old enough to drink. So they were like, oh no, don't give this guy any alcohol, he's not 21 yet. Stupid stuff. But I was like one of the youngest people working at this company. So I started working for this company, and back then I was a Microsoft, I think it's a Microsoft certified systems engineer. Back then I did start by fixing computers, and I'm gonna be honest with you, that gave me like a really good foundation for what I do today. Because there's a lot of people that claim to be network engineers, and look, I'm not trying to be cocky or anything like that, but I'm just like speaking the facts, and I can back it up because I got the references to back it up. And like I said, I mean, you can lock me up in a room with one of the best engineers that do what I do, and I'll go head to head with them, no problem, because I've done this. This is what I do, and I've been doing this for like 20 years. So I'm just gonna explain to you guys how I got to this point, and at the end of this, I'm going to explain to you the good and the bad about working in this line of work, and just like the bad part, and like the bad stuff, the negative things that come with working a 9 to 5, and what I would truly recommend for somebody who is first starting out. I'll give you guys like my recommendations on what I would do. Like what would I do if I could rewind time and go back 20 years? What would I have done differently? So here we go. So I first started out by learning how to fix computers when I was in school, in college. I took some basic computer classes. Again, the classes that the classes that I took, I mean, the instructors that I was like really like learning from and stuff like that, I didn't even think they were that good, to be honest. And that's why I took it upon myself that every time I would start a class, they would give me like a stack of books that I would have to go buy. And basically all these instructors really did was just read out of a book. I didn't feel like they really knew what they were doing. And this was me as a student. I was kind of a pain in the ass when I was a student, I guess you can say. But it all paid off because I kind of saw that the instructors just reading out of a book. I did the first semester just like everybody else does. Now I'm like, no, I'm not feeling this at all. So I ended up just ignoring whatever the instructor said, and I started reading the books on my own. And before the semester was even over, I would go through this entire book way before the instructor, you know, got through the end of the book. Then after I got through that book, I ended up purchasing another book, which back then they were called exam cram books, and I would cram for the certification. Each class, each Microsoft class, Microsoft offers a certification. So basically, in order for an instructor to be able to teach the class, they just had to pass a certification, and now that school would pretty much consider them qualified enough to teach. So what I did was, I was a smartass, and I went ahead and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go through this whole book. I'm gonna go get another book. I'm gonna read that too. I'm gonna practice. I bought equipment and gear. I was practicing at home. I literally just became obsessed with this, where, you know, typically you have other people that are in college and they're out, you know, doing college parties and hanging out, clubbing, doing all that stupid, you know, fun stuff, I guess. Back then when I was like 18, 19 years old, I was just studying. I mean, my parents would like literally take me out to dinner, and when we're out to dinner, I'm at the table with a book that looks like an encyclopedia, and I'm just reading, and they're carrying on with their conversations, and I'm just studying. Like, I was just obsessed with it. I put all of my energy and focus into this, and it paid off. I ended up signing up, took the Microsoft certification. I passed the certification, and I did that the first time. All my classmates were kind of like, oh shit, like John already passed certification. Since you could technically teach the class once you have the certification, the school would just give you an automatic A for that class. And their only requirement was that you still have to attend the class and sit there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take any tests, any homework. You don't have to do anything. You could literally just get an automatic A because you already passed the Microsoft certification. So I did that. And I just found like it was just like so easy for me. It was like so natural for me to like just do this kind of stuff that I ended up doing that for all of my technical classes in that semester. And when I finished, I didn't stop. I started working on the classes for the next semester. And I remember I had this one instructor. He hated me so much. He hated me so much, but this is like a really funny story because he would tell my classmates, he's like, oh, John doesn't know what he's doing. John doesn't have any real world experience. He's just reading out of a book, blah, blah, blah. But what he didn't understand and realize was I'm at home setting up my own lab. I'm practicing. I wasn't just reading about it. I was literally practicing everything because I was buying, you know, used computer gear. I couldn't even afford it. I was like, honestly, like I really couldn't even afford it. But I was buying like real crappy old computer gear at like flea markets and stuff like that, and just practicing at home, figuring it all out as I'm reading the books. So I got my experience, you know, at the same time while I was studying. So this one instructor, which I won't even mention his name, because I actually recently looked him up, and I was just like, you know, I was like so tempted to kind of, you know, I wanted to like message him to just kind of like rub it in, but I left him alone. I didn't want to depress the guy. So what ended up happening was I ended up going through all these classes. I got straight A's in all my classes because I basically got every certification. And once I had all the certifications, you got the title of MCSE, which is Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. Then I got to a point where I was like, okay, so I'm an MCSE. I pretty much got straight A's on all those technical classes. Now what? So that's when I was introduced into other operating systems like Linux. You know, besides Windows, then I got introduced into Linux and other operating systems, and I did the same thing. Read everything, took the certifications, and I was just like way ahead of like my class period. And my instructors saw my dedication and my hard work. And I remember this is one instructor, very nice guy. There was actually two instructors that I really did like a lot. One guy, he was a really sharp guy. And the other instructor, he basically helped me out so much. And it's crazy how things happen. So basically the school reached out to me. They saw me just sitting around in class doing nothing, and I had straight A's. So I was just wasting my time sitting in class. So in these classes, during these classes, you would have to do like a lab sometimes. And while you're doing this lab in class, sometimes the instructors, remember, these instructors, they don't work in the real world. So they're strictly just reading out of a book. And sometimes when they're doing a lab and they're teaching their students how to do this lab, sometimes things don't go according to plan. And that's when you have to troubleshoot and figure things out. Now for me, to be honest with you, naturally, from all the troubleshooting and everything that I had to do when I was at home practicing on my own lab, that taught me so much. I learned so much from doing that. So I got really good troubleshooting skills. So the school reached out to me. They decided to hire me. They gave me my first technical IT job was actually at the college where I was attending. They wanted to hire me so that I can actually help instructors during these labs, so that when these little hiccups occur and things aren't going according to plan, I was like the guy that they were pulling in to help kind of keep the class going smooth. Before I graduated, I think it was like 1 month or 2 months right before I graduated, this one instructor helped me out a lot. Basically, this instructor, his wife was head of human resources for a brokerage firm on Wall Street. Now, when you're coming fresh out of college, the problem is it doesn't matter how hard I studied, like how hard I worked or anything. Nobody wanted to give me a job because they said you have no experience. And I was hungry. Like I was just going everywhere. Like I'm driving. If I see a place that looks like, you know, they have computers or anything, I was going to these places, dropping off resumes, and everybody's like, oh, well, what experience do you have? And I was like, oh, my only experience is what I had in school. And to be honest with you, it's messed up because people don't want to give you the chance. I was like so desperate where I was calling people and I was like, look, I'll work for free. If I can't do the job, just don't pay me. Don't even pay me. I'll work for free for, you know, 6 months, 3 months, whatever, just to gain the experience. And let me prove to you that I have what it takes. Like I'm really good at what I do. But at that time, I don't have any references. I don't have nothing to kind of back me up. Nobody really knew how good I was. So I remember I went on this one interview and it was like the dumbest interview. And like now that I know what I know, I realized that interview was like completely, I think, like illegal, what they were trying to do to me. So now I went into this one interview once to go get a job. At this time, it was just a job to fix computers, servers, that kind of thing. And this company, I guess it was like part of a Catholic church somehow, I don't know. So I'd basically be working for like the Catholic church. And I'm sitting in the interview and the guy's telling me, he's like, listen, I don't care what your religious beliefs are. That doesn't really matter. But out of respect, we require all of our employees to attend our church on Sundays. And back then I was so desperate. I was like, dude, no problem. I'll be there. I'll be at church. I don't give a shit. I just really wanted to gain the experience so I could have a chance at, you know, making something out of myself in this career. But unfortunately, like I said, if you didn't have that kind of drive, not a lot of people made it. You know, not a lot of people made it and did well working in this line of work. And that's the reason why a lot of these guys ended up going back to just doing construction, flooring, whatever they were doing before. A lot of my friends ended up going back to doing that stuff. Only a couple of guys ended up staying in this field. But what ended up happening with this job, this interview with the church, was they saw that I had an MCSE. And they knew that they were offering me like a really crappy salary. Keep in mind, this was back in like 2001, 2002, something like that. They were trying to offer me like 30 grand a year. In the back of my mind, I'm like, I could probably make that working at McDonald's. Like, what the heck am I doing? But again, the point was, I was even willing to work for free. I was living at home at the time. I was just desperate to get experience so I could put it on my resume and then work for a little while there and then move on and apply to another job and be like, hey, I got experience now. So I ended up learning the hard way. So what ended up happening was this company, this church saw that I had an MCSE and they're like, look, we're only paying 30 grand a year. You have an MCSE. We're not stupid. We know you're basically just looking for the experience and you're probably going to take this job and you're not going to probably last more than 2 or 3 months. We're very confident that you're just going to basically use us to go get that next job. And believe it or not, they actually turned me down. I answered every technical question they asked me. I answered everything correct. They asked me if I'm willing to go to their church on Sundays just to attend their church out of respect. I said yes. I did everything by the book and they still didn't give me a shot. So to be honest, that was the best thing that could have happened to me. I'm glad that they did not give me that job because one of the instructors, like I said, his wife worked at human resources for a brokerage firm on Wall Street. They ended up bringing that person from Wall Street to my college to kind of just maybe give a chance to one of the students that works at the school. So what ended up happening was the instructor, basically, they collected resumes from like everybody in the school, like everybody that, you know, like all my classmates, everybody, they collected resumes from all these different people. But the instructor, like, he really helped me so much. The instructor basically said, look, John, I want you to put your resume at the top of this pile. And I'm gonna tell my wife to tell this company that's on Wall Street that you're like one of the best guys that we have here. And not only that, like, you actually help the instructors, you know, to make sure that these classes go smooth. So obviously not everybody's gonna have a chance to go in for an interview. They selected maybe 3 or 5 students to come in for an interview at this company. Long story short, I ended up getting the job. But at this time, now I'll confess that I actually had to lie a little bit to get the job, because I kind of learned the hard way that I was being honest, and I told everybody I was just a college student and I had no experience. But nobody wanted to offer me a job. Nobody would give me a job. Nobody would give me a shot because I had no real world experience. So I had to make something up. And I made up. You know, I won't deny it. Like, I actually did make up that I did have a first job, and I said all the things that I was practicing at home, setting up my labs, doing this and doing that. I put all that stuff on my resume so that this way, when they ask me on the interview, hey, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? I'm like, yeah, I know how to do it. I've done it already. Like, I'll do it right now for you right now. Give me a computer. I'll prove it to you. Like, I know how to do it. The problem is that a lot of people lie on their resume and they can't back it up. I was able to back it up. I went for the interview, got the job, great. So now I became a systems engineer working for this company on Wall Street. But remember, I still hadn't graduated yet. So now I'm working for this company full time. I had to go to school at night. And when I got that job, I was literally already making double the salary of that instructor that absolutely hated me. Then fast forward 2 or 3 more years. I bought my first cool car. Like, my first, well, actually no, this was like my second cool car. First it was a Chevy Tahoe 2002 Z71, fully loaded. I was crazy when I bought that car because honestly, at that time, I was not even making enough to be able to justify owning a vehicle like that. And I ended up having to start a second company, okay? I ended up starting a second company, fixing computers for like residences and stuff like that, just to make extra income to pay for that car. And then I bought, after that vehicle, I got rid of it. I bought a 2006 bright yellow Corvette with Corsa sport exhaust. I had Dynatech headers, high flow cats. This thing sounded beautiful. It was like my first real fast car. I'm at the red light. I'm at a red light by my mom's house. I'm sitting at the red light and I look to my right, and can you believe who is sitting at this light? The same instructor that was saying that I had no idea what I was doing, he pulls up in his car. Granted, he's sitting in a Toyota Celica, I think it was called, some really crappy car that he has. He's sitting at the light, and I'm over here with the top down on the Corvette on a weekend, and I see the instructor, and I'm like honking, I'm like waving at him, and he looks at me, and when he sees who I am, he turned his face like the other way, like really hard. Like, he just changed, he turned his face really fast, and he ignored me. He didn't even want to like talk to me. He recognized exactly who I was. So light turns green. I light up the tires, just freaking do a big smoky burnout, left them in the dust. And that was the last time I ever, saw that instructor. I kept hearing rumors. Like, I kept in contact with a lot of my classmates that knew who he was too. And he was always talking nonsense about me. But the point is, I got to where I got because of the motivation and all the energy and effort that I put into it. I know a lot of people that tried doing the same thing and they just didn't do it. I even have family members that have tried to do what I do. And I was always into the technical stuff. I always loved the technical stuff. So it was easy for me to be good at this. Then after that, after I was working at this brokerage firm on Wall Street, I was kind of looking around at my coworkers. And I was like, all right, how much do those guys make? How much does this department make? How much does this guy make? And I was trying to figure out like who makes the most money, because I got bored already of fixing computers and servers. I was like, that's not for me. Yeah, I need something better than that. So then I discovered Cisco network engineers. Cisco network engineers, at least in this company when I was working, they were like the top paid IT people. These guys are the guys this was like a really big company that I was working for. So we had offices all over the world. We had offices in Colombia, Argentina, London, Sydney, like you name it. We had offices all over the world, Jersey, and obviously the Wall Street location. And these network engineers are like, oh, these are the guys that basically interconnect all these offices, and they control like the flow of data, how data goes from one office to another, optimizing the data so that phone conversations, when they're going through these different offices, the data is optimized so that the phone conversations have good quality. These are the same guys that are responsible for firewall and security. So I was always really into the security part of it too. And at the same point, like I still wasn't even 21 yet. I had already applied to go work for the FBI, and I got you know, my application got flagged because I wasn't even 21 yet. But I had taken already all the Cisco certifications on top of the Microsoft certifications. I took all of the Cisco certifications also, and at the time, even though I didn't have a bachelor's, on the FBI application it literally said, if you don't have a bachelor's, but you do have these Cisco certifications that includes a lot of security stuff in there, they will take that instead of the bachelor's. So that was how, you know, me at 20 years old, I already had the security background to be able to apply for the FBI. But again, I got rejected because I wasn't even 21 yet. And by the time I did turn 21, I was already making so much money at this office that when I turned 21, 22, I was just like, I'm not gonna go apply for the FBI. Like, I'm making more money than these guys are making. You know, you have to like go to like training and you go to like school, and like the salary is like a joke compared to how much I was already making at this point. So that was basically it. And then basically, long story short, the people in my company, the office that I was working for, they saw how like motivated I was. They literally saw me on the subway, on the train, walking into work and out of work. I always, like, my face was always in the book. I had these huge books, and I'm just reading these books all the time. And that's how you got to be, especially when like you're really, really young. You know, it's tough to make it. There's a lot of competition. There was like so many people that fixed computers in my office that knew how much these Cisco guys were making in the office, that they wanted to move into that department. And there were guys there that worked there for 10 years before I even started. And they still gave me the position. They gave me the job just because of the level of effort that I put into it. You know, I was spending my own money to train myself. I was paying for classes outside of the company. I wasn't used to the corporate world. Like, I didn't know back then that companies pay for your education, and I didn't know that. So I literally, and they ended up finding out that I spent thousands of dollars on credit cards. I was just racking credit card debt by signing up for classes on the weekends and taking all these Cisco classes. But basically, a Cisco network engineer, this is the guy that controls all the routing, the switching, the firewall, security, all that stuff. I ended up taking more certifications. I became a certified ethical hacker. Keyword being ethical. That means I'm a good hacker, not a bad hacker. So I ended up staying at this company for 18 years. After 18 years, you know, obviously I was making good enough money to be able to afford the cars that I have. The house that you guys always see me making videos at, that's actually like the second house that I've actually purchased so far. Granted, my house is in a mansion, but it's not a small house either. And it's also, when I bought this house, this is a new construction home. I live in Long Island, New York. You have to understand, you know, a regular house that's like in good conditions, like a nice house, you're already looking at well over $400,000, $500,000. And granted, you could get like a little mansion if you live in Texas or somewhere down south. For the same price that I paid for my house, you could be living in like this small little house that looks like a freaking mansion. I get it. But this is New York, and New York is extremely expensive. So the point is, I always thought, you know, everybody's always like thinking when you're in high school, everybody's always just like, you know what, I need to get a job. Like, you know, I remember back then the goal was everybody's saying, I got to make $100,000 a year. You know, that's the goal. I got to make 100 grand a year. If I make 100 grand a year, I am going to be well off. That was like the mentality back then. Again, this is back like 2002, 2003. I was thinking 100 grand and I'm going to be rich. Like, I'm going to be chilling. Well, I live in New York, okay? 100 grand in New York, it ain't shit. All right, sorry to curse, but it's the truth. You make 100 grand in New York, you're not making anything. It's really nothing, because even making 100 grand a year, yes, you'll have a house. If you save up some money, you'll be able to afford a house. But chances of you owning a nice car and you have a house and you have kids, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. And when I say a nice car, I'm talking about, you know, everybody, I mean, that's, I guess nice car is relative to whatever you like. I mean, you might own a Toyota and you think that's a nice car, and if it makes you happy, good for you. But to me, nice car is like my Rubicon, my Z06 that's like $100,000 Corvette, or my freaking Hellcat, or the new Corvette that I have. To me, those are nice cars. That are cars that are costing $70, $80, $90, $100,000. That's my definition of cars, but that's just my taste. Again, you live your life. Again, you guys just live your life to your own standards and whatever makes you happy. You don't have to compare yourself to me or anybody else, as long as you're happy. And that's what I'm going to get into next. And you know what? I think I'm going to make another video, because I know this video has already gone on for long enough. But I'm going to tell you what the next video is going to be about, because it really, I think it's really going to make a big difference to a lot of people. Because if you're like me, back then, I used to think, oh, I need to make $100,000 and I'm going to work a 9-to-5 job and I'm going to be so happy because I'm going to have everything I need and I'm going to be rich or whatever. Now, if you make 100 grand and you live somewhere down south, you live in Texas, maybe Florida, then you probably can have a nice house and a nice car, and as long as you save a little bit, I'm sure you'd be okay. But like I said, living in New York, in my opinion, if you have no kids, this is just my opinion, excuse me, I think if you made $200,000 a year, right? Let's just say you live alone, single guy, you own your own house, you want to have maybe a couple cool cars, like me or whatever. I have a couple cars. If you're making $200,000 a year, you're not rich. You're okay. You know, you're cool. You know, you could go out to eat. You could afford to go out to eat. You could afford to go on vacation. You could afford to have your 401k. You're okay. You're not rich. You're far from being rich, because 200K does not go very far in New York if you're going to have a house, because the prices of the taxes and the houses and the mortgages and all that stuff, it really isn't, you know, it's not as much as you think it is. Yes, you're going to live a nice, comfortable life, but at the end of the day, there's one big problem with this whole idea. And everybody does this. Everybody, and these are topics, I'm going to mention them now just so you know what's coming. But these are the things that everybody thinks that when everybody's in high school, everybody's always thinking, look, I need to, you know, I need to get married, I need to get a girl, I need to get married, I need to go buy a house, I need to have kids, and I need to go work a 9-to-5 job so I can be happy and I can be successful. Now, if that's your idea of being successful, you know, good luck to you. But in my next video, I'm going to tell you about all the negative things that come with that. You know, it's like, sometimes I even think that buying a house is not even like a smart idea. You know, it's probably a smarter idea to buy a house and rent it out, and then you go move in and go live with your mom, or move in with like a roommate or a friend of yours or something. I don't know. Just you could just keep stack cash, save money. But I'm gonna make a separate video. I'm not gonna make a separate video. The next video is gonna be about this, because that's this is like what's been affecting me so much. And I want to tell you guys like the negative side of all of this. Like, I don't want you guys to think like, oh, I'm just chilling, you know, like I'm making all this good money because I have a great career. There's a lot of BS that you have to deal with also, okay? You guys know how it is. Everybody, you know, most people have 9-to-5 jobs. You know how it is, you know, the negative stuff. I'll get into all that negative stuff in the next video. And I'm gonna give you guys my recommendations in that next video also on what I would do. What I would do if I could go back into time 20 years ago, what would I do? You know, that's the advice that I'm gonna give you guys in the next video. And I'm gonna show you guys a movie. There's a movie. In fact, you know what? I'll give you guys a little bit of homework right now. Maybe you never heard of this movie, depending on how old you are. If you haven't, maybe it might be available on YouTube. It should definitely be available like on Netflix, or just rent it online on Amazon or something. I don't know, you can figure it out. Just Google it. The movie is called Office Space. I think it's called The Office. No, it's called Office Space, not The Office. The Office is a TV show. This is a movie called Office Space. And I'll even include a link in the description below to the actual movie trailer or something like that, so you can see. If you haven't seen that movie, please watch it, because you know what? I know that movie was made to be like a comedy, but I can tell you that now that I've worked in the corporate world for 20 years at least, I can tell you That movie is not a freaking comedy. That movie is a documentary, okay? That movie is what life is really like. I've had multiple corporate jobs, and I can tell you that it is ridiculous how much I can relate to that movie. Now, you could probably look up on YouTube also like best scenes of The Office Space or something like that. But please, look, if you're in high school, you're in college, or maybe you already work in the, if you already work in the corporate world and you haven't seen this movie, you're gonna watch this movie and you're gonna be cracking up. You're gonna be like, oh my God, this is me, this is my life. But if you're in high school or you're in college and you haven't seen the movie, please watch this movie, because the advice I'm gonna give you in that next video is going to like just, I mean, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great advice, and it's gonna help you look at things differently, okay? It's gonna help motivate you so that when you're 30 years old, 40 years old, you're not gonna be like, oh, I wish I could go back into time and fix it and do things a little bit different. I'm gonna give you guys the advice that I have. I'm gonna give you guys the advice that I wish somebody would have given me 20 years ago, okay? That's what I'm gonna do. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a really good plan for myself. If you made it to the end of this video, you are officially Team JMC. So at the end of whatever comment you put in below, and trust me, I read everybody's comments. At the end of your comment, just do hashtag Team JMC so I know you watch this video until the end. But the good news is, guys, I am starting a new business, starting a new company, and I'm gonna start making videos about this kind of stuff, because my goal honestly is to get rid of the 9-to-5. That's gonna be my goal. My goal is gonna be to get rid of the 9-to-5. Obviously, that's not something that's gonna happen overnight, but with this new business that I found online, it's an online business. It has the potential to make ridiculous amounts of money. And all that effort that I just told you guys that I put into becoming a network engineer, because at the end of the day, in working in my field, I'm gonna be capped on a salary. If I'm working for somebody else in a 9-to-5 job, you're never gonna make more than, say, 200,000. And maybe you say I became like a manager doing what I do, maybe you could pull in 200 grand a year, but still, you still got that ceiling, you know? We gotta be a little bit more like Own Me and a Hellcat. I don't remember the lyrics to this song, but it's like, you know, when you look up and you see no ceiling, that's what I need. And that's the reason why I decided, you know what? It's time for me to start my own business. And obviously I'm not gonna quit my job to start this new business. This is a business that I'm gonna start when I'm at home at night after I leave my work. And obviously on the weekends, I'm gonna be investing a lot of that time. Every day after work, I'm just studying and researching everything so I can get this business up and running. The cool thing about this business is it doesn't cost a lot of money at all. It is actually extremely affordable to start the business. And the most challenging part of the business, the thing that you're gonna have to put in the most out of you, is time and effort. You put in the time and the effort and just a little bit of money. When I'm talking about a little bit of money, we're talking 1,500 bucks, 1,000 bucks. You can even start this business. And I'm not gonna go into the details in today's video on exactly what that business is, but that I just want you to know that that's what I'm gonna be doing. Because my number one goal is honestly to be a full-time YouTuber, but I feel like this other business ties into the YouTube business life also, and I can integrate the two businesses together and probably make a ridiculous amount of money, enough money so that you don't have to ever think about having a 9-to-5 job again. So guys, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon so you can sign up for notifications. If you made it to the end of the video, like I said, hashtag below in the comments, Team JMC. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one.
Bro, I think the left side.